Welcome back to Algebra 2, Chapter 10. We're making it, Section 1, the distance and midpoint formulas. Now you learned this in Algebra 1 and maybe even pre-algebra and in geometry. So these are old friends. This is just a review. Where the distance formula comes from is the Pythagorean Theorem. If you have a right triangle, a squared plus b squared is c squared. It doesn't matter which one's a and b, it's just c has to be the hypotenuse. If you wanted c by itself, then you'd square root both sides. And you can see that's what's happening here. The distance is the hypotenuse, and we have to square root it. Now, the other thing about this that I was going to say, you need to know how to tell what's x1 and what's x2. But it doesn't matter with the distance formula. You can switch them and you'll still get the right answer because distances don't care about positive and negative. Distances are always positive. It doesn't matter if I'm going from my house to the library or from the library to my house. I still say it's 2 miles. I don't say it's negative 2 miles from the library to my house. So this is one place where not knowing how to tell won't trip you up. It will with slope, but not with this. Was there? Oh, then the other thing is you can tell with our little triangle up here that if you have 2 points, the C is the distance, but it has an X component and let's draw that better, and a Y component, and that's a really important idea for physics. A lot of times this will be a force and you break it into its horizontal and vertical components, then you use trig and you can solve it. Alright, so the distance formula is x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared, take the square root of the whole thing, and it comes from that. And the midpoint formula, if you wanted to find the midpoint of this line, I would like a different color, but I don't see it. Oh, here's one. I don't want to open that one. I lost my extra marker. I guess I'll just use red. If you want the midpoint, the middle point, you just average them. And if you remember how to do an average, you add up all your data, and then you divide by how many you have. Well, here we have 2 pieces of data, so we divide by 2. You average your x's, you average your y's, and you get the ordered pair xy, which is the midpoint. Now, I have programs on my calculator to do all of these. Pythagorean Theorem, find leg, distance, midpoint. I would highly recommend that you have programs too. Can you do this? Absolutely. This is easy Algebra 1 stuff. But remember, at your level of math, it's not just about how you do it, it's about how fast you do it. And these programs are going to help you do it faster. They give you a little more math than you can get done in the time. When you take the SAT, you run out of time. The ACT, you run out of time. College test. My son Eli just took a calculus test, and he could have made 100 on it, but he ran out of time. He knew every concept inside and out, didn't have quite enough time. So I highly recommend you getting programs for distance and midpoint and Pythagorean Theorem and find leg. You should have those 4 programs. If you've had me for math, you've gotten them from me. But if not, they're out there. You can get them. You download them off of the computer. Alright, so here's a distance program. They say, what's the distance? So we can figure out which is x1 and x2. You look at the x's, whichever is less is the ones, and -2 is less than 3. So this is x1, y1, x2, y2, and then we substitute them into our formula. So if you look at the formula, it's x2 minus x1, and 2 negatives make a positive, and then it is y2 minus y1. You square them, add them up, and the answer is the square root of 61. It's approximately equal to 7.81. Practice all of these in your calculator. Also practice them all using your programs. Okay, then the next one they have is that you use the distance formula or program, and you find out the 3 lengths of a triangle. And then you're supposed to say if it's scalene, isosceles, or equilateral. And if you remember from geometry, scalene has no congruent sides, isosceles has 2 congruent sides, and equilateral has 3 congruent sides. And when they used their distance formula, they found that 2 were the same, and they said it was isosceles. Now, do these. I want you to practice every one of these example problems. I want you to practice it with your programs if you've got them, if not just using your calculator. These are calculator problems. The other thing is they give you some things and they want to know about if the lines are perpendicular or parallel. So remember that if it's perpendicular line, you flip the slope, turn up the radio, blast the stereo louder, and flip it. Flip it. Okay, you flip it and change the sign. Remember, a triangle means change. It's the Greek letter delta. If it's parallel lines, it has the same slope. Okay, so this one we were given 2 points and we're asked what's the midpoint. So if you look at them, -7 is less than -2. I wrote this wrong. So these are the ones, I just wrote them both as 2's. These are the ones, those are the 2's. But it doesn't really matter here either, because it's just you're averaging them. So you write them down, add them up, divide by 2, and the midpoint, that's the x, that's the y of the midpoint. All right? Easy stuff. Come back and we'll do something harder. Math is great.